This is happening right now in Jerusalem. The streets went silent. People left their work and looked up at the sky. Even reporters had no words. And when I tell you why, you'll understand what's truly unfolding. The mainstream media isn't covering this. They don't want you to see what's really happening, but the truth can't stay hidden forever. You're watching this because God wanted you to see it. Something in your spirit recognizes this moment as different. The ancient stones of the old city shimmered under the morning sun. The dome of the rock glowed gold beneath a clear sky. Synagogues, churches and mosques all stood in silence. The same soil where prophets walked. The same streets that heard the Messiah's footsteps. It was 6:47 a.m. when the first trumpet sounded, not from any earthly instrument, but from the heavens themselves. A sound so pure, so profound, that every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Every phone call ended. Every argument ceased. The sound wasn't loud, it was deep. It resonated not just in the air, but in the very souls of everyone who heard it. Maria Santos, a pilgrim from Brazil, was praying at the Western Wall when it happened. I felt my knees buckle, she would later tell me, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't fear, it was recognition, like my spirit remembered something my mind had forgotten. Rabbi David Cohen was teaching his morning class when the trumpet echoed through the narrow streets of the Jewish quarter. His students watched as he stopped mid-sentence, his weathered hands trembling as he gripped his prayer book. "For in 70 years, he whispered, I have never heard the voice of heaven so clear." Father Michael Thompson, visiting from Ireland, was walking the Via Dolorosa when the sound reached him. He later described it as the voice of eternity breaking through time itself. But this wasn't hysteria. This was prophecy in motion. What the prophets saw thousands of years ago was unfolding before our eyes. "Blow the trumpet in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy hill. Let all who live in the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming." Joel 2:1. After this I looked, and there before me was a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice I had heard speak to me like a trumpet said, "Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this." Revelation 4:1. My friend, can you feel this in your spirit? Do you realize we are witnessing what generations only dreamed of? God is moving the pieces of the end times. The veil between heaven and earth is getting thinner. Within minutes, something unprecedented began to happen. People started moving toward the Temple Mount, not in panic, but in purpose. Jews, Christians, Muslims, tourists, residents, all walking in the same direction, as if answering an ancient call they couldn't ignore. Ahmed Hassan, a shopkeeper in the Muslim quarter, left his store unlocked and followed the crowd. "I couldn't explain it," he said. Something inside me said, "This is the moment you've been waiting for your entire life." Sarah Mitchell, a student from Canada, found herself walking alongside strangers who felt like family. "We didn't speak the same language," she remembered, "but we were all hearing the same voice." The Israeli authorities watched in amazement as thousands gathered peacefully, their faces turned skyward, waiting for something none of them could name, but all of them could feel. Now that you know this, what will you do about it? Are you ready for what comes next? While the world sleeps, God is calling those who are awake. What happened this morning stopped a city, but what's coming will stop the entire world. In the next chapter, I'll show you what the gathering revealed about the signs of our times. Until then, stay ready, stay faithful. Maranatha. Today, something impossible appeared over the Temple Mount. Jerusalem stopped this morning for a reason no one can explain. The second trumpet sounded at exactly noon, and this time, the whole world was watching. They don't want you to see what's really happening, but smartphone videos from 1,000 different angles couldn't be silenced. Something in your spirit recognizes this moment as different. By midday, the ancient plaza surrounding the Temple Mount held more people than anyone could count. Not just from Jerusalem, not just from Israel, but pilgrims and visitors who had somehow felt called to be there on this exact day. The ancient stones of the old city bore witness to a gathering unlike any in modern history. Dr. Elizabeth Hoffman, a historian from Germany studying at Hebrew University, documented what she saw. "I've studied religious gatherings throughout history, but I've never witnessed anything like this. People from every continent, every faith background, standing together in perfect peace. The diversity was breathtaking. Orthodox Jews stood beside Catholic nuns. Muslim families prayed alongside Protestant ministers. Hindu pilgrims, Buddhist monks, and secular tourists all found themselves part of something greater than themselves. When the second trumpet echoed across the mount, something extraordinary happened. A gentle light, not from the sun, but from above, began to shine down on the gathering. Witnesses described it as liquid gold and the color of glory itself. Pastor James Wright from Texas live-streamed the moment to his congregation back home. "I'm watching prophecy unfold," he whispered into his phone. Isaiah 2:2-3 is happening right now. "In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all nations will stream to it." This isn't coincidence. This is prophecy in motion. What the prophets saw thousands of years ago is unfolding before our eyes. Many peoples will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths." Isaiah 2:3. "After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb." Revelation 7:9. Anna Petrov, a nurse from Russia, found herself standing next to Chen Wei, a businessman from Beijing. Neither spoke the other's language, yet they communicated perfectly, sharing water, helping elderly pilgrims find places to sit, their faces reflecting the same inexplicable joy. "I came to Jerusalem as a tourist," Anna later told reporters, "but standing there, I realized I had been called to witness something eternal." The local authorities were astounded. Despite the massive crowd, there were no incidents, no conflicts, no chaos. People shared food without being asked. Strangers helped each other without expecting anything in return. Children played together regardless of their backgrounds. Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Goldstein of the Jerusalem Police described it as the most peaceful gathering I've witnessed in 20 years of service. It was as if an invisible hand was maintaining perfect order. As the day progressed, more trumpets sounded, 7 in total, each one drawing more people to the mount. But these weren't just any people. These were individuals who had felt an unexplainable urge to travel to Jerusalem in recent weeks. Flight records would later show that airline bookings to Israel had inexplicably surged 300% in the month leading up to this day, with travelers from every continent unable to explain why they suddenly felt compelled to visit the holy city. My friend, can you feel this in your spirit? Do you realize we are witnessing what generations only dreamed of? God is moving the pieces of the end times. The veil between heaven and earth is getting thinner. Marcus Johnson, a construction worker from Detroit, had used his life savings for a trip to Jerusalem without understanding why. "I just knew I had to be here," he said. "Now I know why. I was called to witness the voice of heaven." Dr. Fatima al-Zahra, a professor from Cairo, brought her entire family after having the same recurring dream for weeks. "I dreamed of trumpets over Jerusalem," she explained. "I thought it was just my imagination until I heard them with my own ears." As the sun began to set over Jerusalem, the 7th trumpet sounded, longer and more beautiful than all the others. The gathered multitude fell silent, and in that silence, something impossible happened. A voice spoke, not in Hebrew, not in Arabic, not in English, but in a language every heart understood. It spoke of love, of unity, of a hope that transcends all earthly divisions. It spoke of a time coming when all tears would be wiped away, when peace would reign, when the family of humanity would finally come home. Now that you know this, what will you do about it? Are you ready for what comes next? While the world sleeps, God is calling those who are awake. What happened today brought the nations together, but what's coming will unite heaven and earth. In the next chapter, I'll show you the messages that began appearing after the trumpets fell silent. Until then, stay ready, stay faithful. Maranatha. Jerusalem stopped this morning for a reason no one can explain. And when I tell you what happened next, you'll understand that this was just the beginning. The mainstream media tried to explain it away as mass hysteria, acoustic anomalies, or coordinated social media hoaxes. They don't want you to see what's really happening, but thousands of witnesses, hundreds of videos, and dozens of supernatural occurrences couldn't be silenced. You're watching this because God wanted you to see it. Something in your spirit recognizes this moment as different. After the seventh trumpet faded into the Jerusalem evening, something even more remarkable began. The wind itself started carrying messages, not words you could hear with your ears, but messages your spirit could understand. Dr. Samuel Roth, an atmospheric physicist visiting from MIT, was documenting wind patterns when the impossible happened. The meteorological equipment registered something I've never seen, he reported. The wind was moving in patterns that defied every law of physics I know. It was as if the air itself was alive, carrying information. The ancient stones of the old city seemed to vibrate with an energy that made the very atmosphere shimmer. The dome of the rock glowed gold beneath a sky that pulsed with colors no earthly sunset could produce. The same soil where prophets walked was now witnessing prophecy fulfilled. Maria Elena Vasquez, a linguistics professor from Spain, described her experience. I felt words forming in my mind, not in Spanish, not in any language I knew, but I understood every syllable. It was as if heaven was teaching earth how to speak again. This isn't hysteria. This is prophecy in motion. What the prophets saw thousands of years ago is unfolding before our eyes. And afterward, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions. Joel 2:28. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. Acts 2:17. The messages weren't random. They were personal, specific, and transformative. Each person received exactly what their spirit needed to hear. Rebecca Thompson, a widow from Scotland who had lost her husband just months before, felt a warmth surround her as the wind whispered truths about eternal love and reunion. For I heard my husband's voice telling me that love never dies, that we're just separated by a thin veil, and that what awaits us is more beautiful than anything we can imagine. Carlos Mendoza, a businessman from Mexico struggling with addiction, felt chains breaking in his spirit as messages of freedom and new life filled his mind. For the first time in years, I felt completely clean, not just my body, but my soul. The wind carried away every craving, every burden I'd been carrying. Young David Kim from South Korea, who had been contemplating ending his life due to academic pressure, suddenly understood his purpose with crystal clarity. I realized that my struggles weren't meant to destroy me, but to prepare me for something greater. I felt heaven telling me that my story wasn't over. It was just beginning. My friend, can you feel this in your spirit? Do you realize we are witnessing what generations only dreamed of? God is moving the pieces of the end times. The veil between heaven and earth is getting thinner, but the messages weren't just for individuals. Entire groups began receiving visions of unity, healing, and restoration. A delegation of religious leaders from different faiths found themselves sharing the same vision, a great table where all of humanity would sit together, no longer separated by doctrine or tradition, but united in love. Rabbi Cohen, Imam Abdullah, and Father O'Brien stood together, tears streaming down their faces as they realized they had seen identical images. The medical team that had been standing by for emergencies instead witnessed miracle after miracle. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, an emergency physician from Dublin, watched in amazement as chronic conditions seemed to simply dissolve. "I saw a woman who had been blind for 20 years suddenly see her grandchildren's faces for the first time," Dr. Walsh reported. "A man who hadn't walked without crutches in a decade threw them aside and danced. I'm a woman of science, but what I witnessed transcended everything I thought I knew about healing." The wind messages continued throughout the night, each one perfectly tailored to the hearts that needed to hear them. Messages of forgiveness for those carrying guilt, messages of hope for those lost in despair, messages of calling for those seeking purpose, messages of reunion for those mourning separation. As dawn approached, the final message came, not to individuals, but to the entire gathering as one unified body. "You have seen the beginning. You have felt the touch of eternity. Now go and tell the world that love is stronger than fear, that light conquers darkness, that the promises made long ago are being fulfilled. Tell them that the King is coming, and his kingdom has no end." The crowd began to disperse as the sun rose over Jerusalem, but something fundamental had changed. These weren't the same people who had gathered the day before. They carried within them a piece of heaven, a mission that burned in their hearts like an unquenchable flame. Airport workers reported that passengers boarding flights from Ben Gurion Airport were unlike any they had ever seen, radiating peace, kindness, and an inexplicable joy that seemed to touch everyone around them. Now that you know this, what will you do about it? Are you ready for what comes next? While the world sleeps, God is calling those who are awake. The messages in the wind have been delivered, but the greatest message is yet to come. In the final chapter, I'll show you what the witnesses are doing now and how you can be part of what's unfolding. Until then, stay ready, stay faithful. Maranatha, this is happening right now all over the world, and what started in Jerusalem 3 months ago is now touching every corner of the earth. The mainstream media has finally started paying attention, but they still don't understand what they're reporting. They can document the effects, but they can't explain the cause. Something in your spirit recognizes this moment as different, because you were there with us, in your heart, when the trumpets first sounded. The ancient stones of Jerusalem may have been where it began, but the ripple effect has reached every nation, every city, every humble village where human hearts beat with hope. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a sociologist at Stanford, has been tracking what she calls the Jerusalem effect across the globe. In 40 years of studying human behavior, I've never documented anything like this, she reports. We're seeing spontaneous outbreaks of kindness, unprecedented levels of community cooperation, and a massive shift towards spiritual awakening that transcends all religious boundaries. Those who were physically present in Jerusalem that day have become carriers of something extraordinary. But even more remarkable, people who never left their homes but felt the call in their spirits are experiencing similar transformations. Take Jennifer Murphy from rural Kansas. She never traveled to Jerusalem, but on the day the trumpets sounded, she felt compelled to open her heart in prayer for the first time in decades. "I was feeding my chickens when I suddenly felt this overwhelming love wash over me," she remembers. "I knew something was happening somewhere, and I was part of it, even from thousands of miles away. This isn't coincidence. This is prophecy in motion. What the prophets saw thousands of years ago is unfolding before our eyes. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be." Matthew 24:27. "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come." Matthew 24:14. The witnesses from Jerusalem have scattered across the globe, but they haven't remained silent. Marcus Johnson returned to Detroit and started a community center that feeds hundreds of families weekly. His construction crew now spends their weekends building homes for those who lost everything. "I can't keep what I experienced to myself," he explains. "It's like carrying fire. You have to share it, or it consumes you." Maria Santos went back to Brazil and established a network of prayer houses that stretch from São Paulo to the Amazon. "Every morning at 6:47, we remember the first trumpet," she says. "And every day, more people join us who feel the same calling." Pastor James Wright's congregation in Texas has grown from 200 to over 3,000 in 3 months, but not because of marketing or programs. "People just keep coming," he marvels. "They say they feel drawn here, like they're supposed to be part of something bigger." My friend, can you feel this in your spirit? Do you realize we are witnessing what generations only dreamed of? God is moving the pieces of the end times. The veil between heaven and earth is getting thinner. But the most remarkable changes are happening in the most unlikely places. In maximum security prisons, hardened criminals are laying down their weapons and picking up Bibles. Warden Patricia Holmes at Millfield Correctional Facility reports a 90% reduction in violence since October. While these men and women are experiencing something I can only describe as supernatural rehabilitation, she notes. In corporate boardrooms, CEOs are restructuring their companies to prioritize employee welfare over profit margins. Rebecca Sterling, who was named Fortune 500's most ruthless executive 3 years running, shocked Wall Street by converting her entire bonus structure into employee housing assistance. After Jerusalem, I couldn't look at my workers the same way, she admits. I saw them as family, not resources. In war-torn regions around the world, enemies are laying down their arms. The rebel leaders and government forces in Eastern Africa, who have been fighting for over a decade, met for peace talks after both sides reported the same recurring dream, a vision of children playing in fields where battlefields once raged. Even more incredible are the reports coming from hospitals worldwide. Medical staff are documenting healing rates that defy explanation. Dr. Amanda Foster at Children's Hospital Philadelphia says, "We're seeing recovery rates 400% above normal, but more than that, we're seeing families who were broken by illness coming together stronger than ever. The supernatural has become natural. The impossible has become inevitable." But perhaps the most powerful testimony comes from those who have found their way back to faith after years of doubt. Professor Richard Hawkins, who spent 20 years teaching that religion was humanity's greatest delusion, shocked his Oxford University colleagues by resigning his position to open a reconciliation centre in Belfast. "I used to think faith was intellectual weakness," he admits. "But now I understand it's the only thing strong enough to heal our world." Children born since the Jerusalem event display an unusual wisdom and compassion. Kindergarten teachers report that conflicts that once took hours to resolve now end with spontaneous apologies and hugs. These kids seem to understand love in a way that takes most adults a lifetime to learn, observes teacher Maria Gonzalez. The ripple effect continues to expand, touching lives in ways both profound and simple. Divorce rates have plummeted. Suicide rates have dropped to historic lows. Mental health facilities report that depression cases are declining at unprecedented rates. But this isn't just about individual transformation. Entire communities are being reborn. The city of Detroit, once a symbol of urban decay, is experiencing a renaissance that economists can't explain. Crime has dropped 70%. Property values are rising not because of gentrification, but because neighbors are genuinely caring for each other and their communities. In rural Afghanistan, where conflict has raged for decades, farmers from different tribes are working together to plant seeds for the first time in a generation. The land itself seems to be healing, reports agricultural specialist Dr. Hassan Khalil. Now that you know this, what will you do about it? Are you ready for what comes next? While the world sleeps, God is calling those who are awake. The trumpets have sounded. The gathering has dispersed. The messages have been delivered. But you, my friend, you're part of this story. Every prayer you've whispered, every act of kindness you've shown, every moment you've opened your heart to love, you've been part of preparing the world for this moment. The kingdom of heaven isn't just coming, it's already here, growing like a seed in every heart that chooses love over fear, hope over despair, unity over division. What happened in Jerusalem was the beginning. What's happening now around the world is the continuation. But what's coming next, when every knee bows and every tongue confesses that love has won, that will be the completion. Write in the comments, Maranatha, come, Lord Jesus. Share this message so more people awaken to what's happening. Let's be the generation that sees the promises fulfilled. What started with trumpets in Jerusalem will end with trumpets around the world. And when that final trumpet sounds, every tear will be wiped away, every broken heart will be healed, and every family will finally come home. Until then, stay ready, stay faithful, the best is yet to come. Maranatha.